Good evening, y'all. My name is Chapin. I'm the chairman of the District 5 Teacher Forum, and on behalf of the District 5 Teacher Forum and the SIC, we'd like to thank you and welcome you. Thank you for joining us this evening here at this beautiful Chapin Middle School. We want to thank Chapin Middle School for hosting us as well. Also want to thank the candidates for coming and sharing your passion and your information with us this evening. I'd like to introduce to you our moderator for the evening. Our moderator this evening is Ms. Mary King. Ms. Mary King is currently co-anchors the WIS Sunrise. Mary is a true friend of the School District 5 who is always willing to help the district. She's been reporting for WIS since moving here into the capital city in 2011. She's been involved in the entertainment industry for many years and has been seen in national commercials and television shows for Nickelodeon, Wendy's, Sears, Kraft Macaroni and Cheese, and many others. Before she was at WIS, she was in Hagerstown. Mary was named first runner-up for the title of Miss Maryland 2 years in a row and was recognized by the Miss America organization for her community involvement. She currently enjoys working with several Midland area nonprofits and serves as a mentor in Columbia for the Columbia area schools. She's also an award-winning dancer and choreographer. I didn't know that myself. Mary studied for years in New York City under many of the choreographers now seen on the popular TV show So You Think You Can Dance. So maybe we'll get a little competition going on later on. Mary loves her family and being married to her best friend Curtis. She thanks God for her blessings she considers too numerous to count. Mary loves helping WIS Sunrisers start their day and becoming part of the Midlands community. And so on behalf of the District 5 Teacher Forum and SIC, I'd like to welcome Ms. Mary King to the podium.
Thank you all for having me here tonight. It is an honor to be here. I love working with Lexington Richland District 5. Before I was on the anchor desk, I reported in the fields every morning and actually started the Cool Schools initiative. And I can't count how many times I was in Lexington Richland 5 because it was a lot. Because we know we have a lot of incredible schools in this district. And the administration, the staff, the teachers, the parents, the families all help make it that way. So when Mark Bounds asked if I could be a part of this tonight, I was truly honored. I'm looking forward to the discussion, and I hope you all did prepare your dance routine, because we're going to do that. They're like, no, we're not talking about that. So we're going to start with just, I'll go down the line introducing the candidates here tonight, and then we'll do a quick reminder of the rules. So with us, Robert Camp, Richland County, Beth Hutchinson, Lexington County, Dr. Barb Waldman, Lexington County, and Michael Hayes, Lexington County. Quick reminder of the rules, just so you all know, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to give his or her opening remarks. We are then going to do 12 rounds where each candidate will get an opportunity to answer questions that were submitted by the public and selected by the Teacher Forum and District 5 School Improvement Council representatives. The order of the questions is completely random, and the order for answering the questions is going to be rotated so that each candidate gets an equal opportunity to go first, second, third, fourth, and so on. Candidates will also have 1 minute to answer these 12 questions that we have. Timers will be held up, so we will know how much time we have. We've got our beautiful ladies down here in the front, so we will know how much time for each question. The candidates can see that as well. And we will not have any questions directly from audience members tonight. After 12 rounds of general questions, candidates will then be given 2 more minutes for their closing remarks. Sound good? All right, the opening statement order was drawn at random tonight, and I will go down the list one by one in that order. So if you guys are all ready, we good? Our first opening statement is going to come from Mr. Hayes.
Thank you. Again, thank you for being here. Some of you probably have not left the building today. That doesn't go unnoticed, so we appreciate it. You're hosting us for allowing us to be here. I'm privileged to have 2 boys that have been a part of Lexington Richland 5. One is a 10th grader at Spring Hill, right next door. My oldest was Austin Cates, and he is, but he is now at Anderson University. I've had the honor to serve in the district really since they were in elementary school. I was chatting with some folks and said, I think I've been on Crossroads twice, SIC twice, or more middle twice, or 3 or 4 times. But that I consider a honor and a privilege. My wife is graduate from high school, and we make our home in the Irmo area, and actually live in the home she grew up in. So we truly say this is home for us, and we're always proud to represent District 5.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gates. Ms. Hutchinson.
Thank you, and I too thank all of you for being here, and I thank the organizers. It's really important for us to be able to share the message, and for all of you who have spent your time, which we greatly appreciate, to come out here and hear what the issues are and allow us to share our thoughts. I served in the school board for 14 years. It was the first time in 6 years, and I took a 6-year break as I was raising my children, and then got back on in 2008, and I have enjoyed every bit of it. I feel like I have a real passion for serving the schools, making sure that the education is outstanding. What I've learned, some key messages and thoughts, is that I've learned that the school board needs to work together. We're most effective when it works together, and I think it really creates the right atmosphere for the whole school district. So that certainly is my passion, is to continue on that trail. I've also learned that we have very talented employees, staff, teachers, administrators, and they make this school district extraordinary. So I do appreciate the opportunity and look forward to answering the questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Mr. Gant, you're next.
Thank you for being here, and I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I am Robert Gant. I am the one and only candidate in Richmond County. You need to know that. It's important. But I am a native of South Carolina. I grew up in Rock Hill. I see Rick Howell over here. Rick Howell's a Rock Hill, and I'm proud to have him here tonight. Rick's a great volunteer in the district. I'm a USC graduate. I served in the United States Army Reserves, retired from that, and I retired from the South Carolina Department of Revenue a few years back. I'm currently a partner in a small consulting firm that does tax consulting. But I lived in Irmo in this area since 1972. And I often joke about that. You can live here a long, long time, but if you aren't born here like Dan Coon, you're probably never going to be a real Irmo native. And Dan, we appreciate you having us with you, so it's great. But there's a great history here. I have my wife of 47 years sitting in the very back of the room. It's Laura. And met her at Winthrop College. Love of my life. I have 3 daughters, all graduated from District 5 schools. They've all done very well. I have 2 teachers in the family, and they love what they do. My family's lived here for a long time. I've been very involved in the schools for a long, long time. And saw the need about 16 years ago to step up to the next level and try to be a board member. I enjoy that. Just such as mentioned, it's a very rewarding experience. I probably wouldn't go so far to say I've enjoyed every bit of it. We've had some little tussles sometimes, not such as sometimes, but there are hard things you do as a board member, but they're very valuable things, and Ms. Hutchinson agree with that too. I believe in these schools. I believe very much that the schools are an integral part of this community, and I think that good schools mean good things for the whole community, and I think that it's incumbent upon us to look out for the next generation and the generation after that. I mentioned my daughters. I now have a granddaughter in the school system. I have a granddaughter in Greenville County. I have a grandson on the way in February. So we're very excited about the schools and school district, and I'm honored to have served for the last 16 years. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Gant. Dr. Baldwin.
I too would like to thank you all for taking your time this evening to be here. I've been a resident of District 5 for over 24 years, and I originally moved here before I had any children because of the reputation of District 5. And I want to continue to grow the opportunities for all of our students within the district. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I received my Bachelor's of Science from Virginia Tech and my PhD from Johns Hopkins, both in biochemistry, and I'm currently on the faculty of the Department of Biological Sciences at USC. So I'm familiar with what students need, how they need to be prepared once they leave high school and go on to higher education. So I bring that perspective with me to the board should I be elected. I've been a dedicated volunteer in the school district for 16 years. In 2001, I started out when my daughter was in kindergarten as a classroom mom, and then very quickly ended up being elected to SIC chairing SIC, working as a secretary, president of PTSO, and I've been doing that through all the schools, elementary, middle, high school, and I'm currently a community member of the Irma High School SIC, and working on one of their community positive promotion committees as well. I'm also the president of a group called Page 5, that's the Parent Advocates for Gifted Education in District 5. That's a district-wide organization where we bring together all parents that are interested in gifted education in the district, and we run several functions in Page 5, and I've been president of Page 5 for the last several years. And due to my involvement with all these different organizations, serving as chair or president over the years, I started to attend the school board meetings in 2004, and in the last probably 6 years, I've been really a regular attendee at the school board meetings. So I'm very familiar with all the issues that have been coming before the board, and I feel like I would be very ready and able to just jump right in should I be elected to the board. As Mr. Dan said, one of the greatest strengths of this district is our stakeholders, the community, the students, the teachers, the parents, the businesses. We all come together and do whatever we need to do for the students of the district. But one of the most important things facing us is funding. And that is going to be probably the biggest issue that the board will have to face year after year after year. So with that, I would just like to say I've long been an advocate for education of the students in District 5. And I will be very committed and dedicated to serve as a school board member if elected.
Thank you, Dr. Waldman. We'll get into our round of questions now. Just a reminder, these answers are 1 minute each, and this is in random order. Both the questions and the responses will be delivered in a different order as well. So our first question, as some of you already hit on some of this in your opening statements, but feel free to hit on that again. Please describe in as much detail as possible your volunteer experience in District 5. We are going to start with Mr. Camp.
Thank you, Mary. Well, my volunteer efforts in District 5 started with my oldest daughter, who is going to experience a very significant birthday. Today she's 39, and she's going to have a birthday she's going to have a birthday in November 8th, very significant day. But when she was in kindergarten, I started working with her and her kindergarten teacher. My first real experience volunteering in that class, that kindergarten teacher still teaches in District 5. So I was given the honor and task of helping those students clean a table which was very dirty with shaping. Put it all over the table and you run your fingers all through it. It worked remarkably. Only in 30 seconds, not too long on that. But that's when it started. I was then got very involved in Irma Elementary PTA, Irma Elementary SIC, Irma Middle School, at all levels that my children were involved in. My 3 children have been involved, as my wife has also been involved. I read in schools. I do a lot of things today. At one point, I learned to drive a bus. Coach Cox at Bethel High School, so I can go and cart my children to different needs. It's been a long, wonderful experience.
Thank you, Mr. Gant. Ms. Hutchinson.
I, too, like Mr. Gant, started when my oldest went to Harbison West as a kindergartner, and I would go and help with the different centers, and it was just an amazing experience as a new parent or younger parent. And I learned so much, and what I really learned was the fact that these teachers were amazing, and they had so much patience. I continued volunteering in the schools. My son came along 4 years later as a kindergartner. I volunteered at Crossroads and Irma Middle, and not so much at Irma High School. The high school students don't really want you around. But at that point, during most of that, I was serving on the school board, so I definitely consider that my service to the school district. And we have, and like Mr. Gant, I go into the classrooms when asked to read. We have an opportunity to come to programs, and it's just a great way to be able to serve the community.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Dr. Waldman.
As I mentioned in my opening statement, for the last 16 years I've been involved with the schools through SICs, PTOs, Page 5. And I've also served during that time, I've also served as a volleyball team mom. I've also served in several district-wide committees or been involved in district-wide activities. Many years ago, I was on a fine arts committee. the Strategic Planning Committee back in about 2003, 2004. I've worked with Tammy Richardson, the director, the coordinator of Gifted and Talented Education, on the Gifted and Talented 5-year plan. I've judged district science fairs, the superintendent's writing contest. I've been involved with principal selections at different times. And in 2007, I was the Elementary School Outstanding Volunteer of the Year. And in 2015, I received the Superintendent Volunteer Service Award.
Thank you, Dr. Waldman. And Mr. Cates.
Thank you. I currently serve as a member of the Irmo Yellow Technical Club and stay involved with Irmo Athletics as a team dad and athlete. I've been on SIC at every level, from elementary to high school, and along the way twice at Crossroads and Irmo Middle, chairing SIC at Crossroads, Irmo Middle, and Spring Hill High School. I also served on the SIC for a year at Irmo High School. So I had an opportunity to be on 2 state-level committees with the Education Oversight Committee, and currently serve on the Comprehensive Health Education. The acronym I can never remember. The Health Education Advisory Committee here in the district. Also the district's Technology Committee for the Middle School Technology Task Force.
Thank you, Mr. Cates. Moving to our second question tonight, I want you to name your top 3 priorities if elected to the school board and why these are important. Everybody, their top 3 priorities if elected to the school board and why these are important. Ms. Hutchinson, we'll start with you.
Certainly. The number 1 responsibility and focus certainly will be school funding. I know that sounds a little bit boring, but it does make all the difference. It allows us to hire great teachers, have wonderful programs, and for us to continue the excellence. We want to make sure that School District 5 gets our fair share of funding. Past year, several of us worked with legislators and educated them as far as what happens when you try to distribute money and take money away from school districts like ours that are really doing a great job. Let's not hurt the ones that are doing a great job. Second, we have growth, a lot of growth in the Chapin area. The school in particular, we need to add a new wing to accommodate the growth. Chapin needs a new elementary school, so we need to focus on that. And then the older schools in the school district, Harbison West, Nursery Road, H.E. Corley, and Dutch Fork, they definitely need some renovations, because we do know that the facilities matter. It helps students and it helps teachers learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Dr. Waldman.
Well, the overarching concern is always going to be funding. I mean, that's going to control everything else that we do as a board. Dealing with growth would be one of my top priorities. Right now, Chapin Middle is above capacity, and Lake Murray Elementary is, with only kindergarten through 4th grade, it has 995 students. We need to deal with that growth issue. We also need to, as Ms. Hutchinson said, we need to update our facilities. 13 of our facilities were built in 1998 or before, and those have not received any major renovations in the recent years. Things like walls at Harbison West and Nursery Road. And finally, my third priority would be to make sure that we are meeting the unique educational needs of all of our students throughout the district. We have special needs students, we have gifted students, we have everything in between, and we need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to provide them with the best possible outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Waldman. Mr. Cates.
1 minute for a 3-part question. It's ambitious, but funding we've talked about. We have to be good stewards of the resources we have, and we have to be advocates to change the system. Quite frankly, the system's broke, but that's bigger than the district, so we have to be advocates at the state level to fix the system. Retaining and recruiting the high-quality teachers, administrators, staff that we have has to be a priority. We have to make sure we're doing everything we can to improve the quality of life for those folks that are pouring into our students each and every day, and we have to focus on that. And managing growth is an issue. We have to look at how can we best use the resources we have. Are we maximizing the benefit of those resources? And when it's time, certainly, we will add additional facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Cates and Mr. Kim.
Thank you, Gary. The number one priority for me would be to continue the excellence of School District 5. I mentioned to you that I moved here in 1972. This school district had a wonderful reputation. It's continued through the years. It's gotten better and better and better. And that'd be the top priority. There are a lot of pieces to that, but to continue the excellence. It's one of the hardest things to do if you're on top, to stay on top. That's would be my goal. The next thing is Ms. Hutchinson mentioned, and Dr. Waldman, to ensure that we're properly funded in our schools. And when I first got on this board, we were autonomous. That meant we could raise taxes as needed to fund our schools. There was an act that came about called Act 388, and we were limited in our funding ability. And at that, about the same time, the state legislature was limited by the amount of revenue coming into the state, and unable to fully fund the basic human costs. So that creates a problem. Every year, each budget stands on its own. And my third priority is to work with Dr. Hefner and the community across to address the growth issues. He's recently unveiled Plan 2020, and work with him to finalize that plan and to meet the needs of our students going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Pan. We'll move on to question 3 tonight, and that is, if you were elected, how would you ensure that you stay connected to your constituencies, specifically addressing how you can stay connected to teachers? Okay? We'll start with you, Dr. Wall.
As I said, I've been involved with a lot of different groups throughout the district, and so over time I have connections with lots of different people, and I will continue to stay connected, being involved with SICs in different schools or visiting different schools. And specifically in terms of teachers, I would invite them to contact me anytime, by email, by phone, and let me know what the issues are, because nothing can be done until we hear what the issues are that they're facing. So I'm a very good listener, and so what I will do is listen and try to come up with solutions to issues if there are problems. But I would just be very open and available to anyone.
Thank you, Dr. Wallman. Mr. Gates.
Well, thank you. Be available to all the stakeholders. My plan would to be in each and every school, to visit those SICs, PTOs, faculty meetings when invited, to make sure faculty and staff understood that I wanted to hear their voice. I have a unique position since I have a student in the district. I kind of see on the front line with some changes in the way we might communicate or policies or implementation, how that impacts our faculty and our students and their families. So I would continue to be a voice and hear from those folks. But I think primarily be in the school, visit the classroom, make yourself available, and continue to be involved in the district at the high level I am now.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Mr. Kim.
Well, the number one thing that would be involved with state is I'm available. I live here, shop in the grocery store. Believe you me, I've had many conversations on how to improve the find that happens every time. By phone, by email, I get a lot of contacts. In the community, people, I think we're viewed as a very user-friendly board. I don't know anybody that's really fearful to come and talk to the board. Sometimes I'm really surprised at what they'll talk to me about. It's good stuff. We get to hear things. But I will tell you this, I have 2 daughters that teach, and I know they get lobbied pretty hard sometimes to take a message to your dad and talk to him about this particular issue, like whether it be evaluations or whatever, so I hear about that. I think the Teacher Forum does a great job in connecting with the board. They have the chat and shoot. We have pretty much a direct line to these forums that go on. I feel like we're friends all working toward the same goal. And I'll tell you, the number one thing I think that affects students in this district with all the other pieces is that classroom teacher that goes in the room, shuts the door, and teaches her students every day. Very bad.
Thank you, Mr. Van. Ms. Hutchinson.
Certainly. Well, one thing that hopefully all people know is that our phone numbers and emails and address are posted on the website. So that really makes it very easy for people who want to contact any of the board members. There's the information. Certainly I do get calls, emails, and see people in the grocery stores, Mr. Van mentioned. Sometimes I, especially Publix. If I go in Publix, I'm really there for a long time. So, and that's because so many of our employees in the district live here, and that really says a whole lot about this district. But I'm very receptive to any complaints or any options for how can we change something. And my role as a school board member is to take it back to the superintendent and ask for his help for him to investigate something. So I'm very receptive and open. I try to get into the schools. Since I've been on the school board for 14 years and lived in this community for about 27, I do know a lot of people, and that makes a difference.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. There has been a lot of discussion concerning the changes to the teacher evaluation system. So we're asking you to tell us how you believe teachers should be evaluated. Mr. Gates, we'll start with you.
The current system is a little bit complex. We have to have professional development to understand how the evaluation is going to be used. I think that's a sign that we need to examine that evaluation. The high-stakes testing, when I was on the EOC Standards Review Committee, it was obvious we were asking teachers to be evaluated against a standard that had not been picked. It's unfair to evaluate somebody when they don't know what the evaluation is going to be based on. I likened it to trying to not just hit a moving target, but we're not even going to tell you which direction the target is in. So I think we need to hear sooner from the state level when these high stakes tests are changed, and we need to make sure that that data is not being used in a punitive way when our teachers are evaluated, but in order to improve classroom instruction.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Mr. Dan.
I think the teacher evaluation system, as Mr. Cage mentioned, is sort of a state of movement. With No Child Left Behind that's passed many years back, which is pretty much phased out now, there was this component that tied progress to a test score, and that's probably the wrong way to go about it altogether. I think the thing that I see in teachers in School District 5 and many other places in our state is teachers don't mind being evaluated. They want it to be fair. They want it to be something they have a seat at the table, and I think that's happening right now. We're so lucky to have Molly Spearman as State Superintendent of Education, and we have in District 5 people that are actually serving with her on this whole teacher evaluation piece and how to conduct it. I think that you have to look at what goes on in that classroom and who best knows the teacher other than the instructions of the principal or the principal in the school. That's where the teacher is known. But this whole situation where you have a PE, art, a math class, and an English class, or a fourth grade this or fifth grade, that's a hard measure to keep it equal. So the good news is I think we have a seat at the table, what teachers do, and they are considered a very valuable asset.
Thank you, Mr. Dan. Ms. Hutchinson.
Certainly, I do think that is one of the crucial points of the evaluation is to have the teachers meeting with their supervisor, the principal, or the assistant principal, to make sure they know what is expected of them. Now, our teachers are very smart, and they know they have high expectations for themselves and for the students. So I feel like those goals will be very lofty goals, they'll be realistic goals, and we certainly do not need to have outside sources telling us that our teachers must be graded or evaluated on test scores where they don't have any option to have some sort of collaboration, talk about setting goals for each student that they have. There needs to be a lot of communication, and we don't need this coming from the very top, from federal government. And thankfully, we do have a state board that is in State Department of Education that is very understanding of teachers. Molly Spearman was a teacher, so I do think that we are on the road to having more conversations about how to make evaluations positive and helpful in the schools.
Thank you. And Dr. Baldwin.
I too do not agree with using student performance on standardized tests as the sole way of evaluating a teacher's performance. It's hard to even conceive of it as being part of that evaluation because teachers don't necessarily get to control which students are in their classes. What I do like is a system that will allow for constructive criticism. I like the idea of the teachers designing the SLOs, the student learning outcomes or objectives. What I don't like about that is the extra time and burden it puts on the teachers to design all this, to go through the process of setting up the student learning objectives. But again, things like Mosaic, the in-classroom observation by the administrators, I think those kinds of pieces are good parts of the evaluation process, but the evaluation should not be based on a single item like standardized test performance.
Thank you, Dr. Walden. We are at our fifth question for the evening, and this is, how do you think the district should address increased enrollment across the district, specifically addressing how the district should respond to increased enrollment in the Chapin cluster, while still addressing facility, student, and instructional needs of older legacy schools? Mr. Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no doubt this school district is growing. For the first time in many years, we're seeing that growth creep up in a good way. The 10-day count last year to this year, we grew by 300 students. That hadn't happened in a long time. And every indication is that that's going to continue. In the Chapin area alone, there's been an application or buying 3,000 taps on homes. That translates into a lot of students. One of the things I think that we address that, Dr. Havner just introduced in September his plan, Vision 2020. As you know, he did a Vision 2015, that's pretty much completed. The first thing in that vision was to add a wing to this school that we're sitting in tonight. The board has already approved that piece. We did it at our last board meeting. So we know there's probably going to be a new elementary school, or maybe two, in the Chapin cluster. The capacity of Chapin High School, I've seen this Dr. Ross here, is now 1,700 plus students. We're not full there, but it will fill with all those houses coming. And that's a good thing. It's a great thing for our community. The 2008 bond referendum addressed older schools. There's a future referendum that will also address older schools because we had those identified in the first referendum, didn't have the funds to take care of it. We will, I promise you.
Thank you, Mr. Dan. Ms. Hutchinson.
I think it's really important for us to also remember the older schools. And while we absolutely know that we have to increase school space, learning space for students here in Chapin, it's very important that we remember the older schools. IRMO has, since our school district basically started there, we have a lot of older schools that need to be refurbished. We want to make sure those schools are attractive and inviting to new neighbors, to new families. And as these neighborhoods age, then we hope new families will become citizens or neighbors in that area. And we think that will keep our whole community very safe and very secure, and also contribute to what we consider the stability of the area. We know that schools really make our community stronger, and if we're strong across the district, that really does help us all.
Thank you. Dr. Walden.
I agree that we need more space in the district for students in order to maintain our board policies that dictate the student-to-teacher ratio and also the school sizes, the maximum school sizes. The Chapin area, as has been mentioned, a new wing on Chapin Middle, a new elementary school in the Chapin area to relieve the overcrowding at Lexington, at Lake Murray Elementary and Chapin Elementary. But we do need to address the legacy schools, the fact that Hartson West and Mercer Road still do not have walls separating the classrooms. About 7 years ago, the population at Hartson West was rather low. It is now essentially at functional capacity. It's around 650 students. It's the third largest elementary school in the district. So we need to look at if we need to add capacity even to some of our older schools. But for all these things, we're going to need money and funding, and it may be that we need another bond referendum.
Thank you, Dr. Walden. Mr. King.
We've stated the obvious, right? We're growing. That didn't happen overnight. The solutions won't come overnight. So we need to be focused on, one, how do we relieve the immediate need? A new wing here, obviously, but I think we also have to ask, how did we miss that? Right? The school's not been open that long. We want to be good. I keep going back to be good stewards of our resources. I think we have to consistently communicate to the public. I'll just give this as an example. In Vision 2020, the school is stated to be a program capacity of 816 students. But other places on the website show it as 1,000. And I'm not suggesting that there's anybody trying to fudge the numbers at all, but that creates confusion in the community. It's hard to get people to come alongside you and to support new facilities, new bond referendum, new expenditures, when the message didn't always crystal clear.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. For many years, the state legislature has underfunded school districts based on the formula in the Education Finance Act. So the question is, how would you help ensure District 5 is appropriately funded? Ms. Hutchinson.
Certainly. I have to give a lot of credit to Ed White, a fellow board member, who during one budget conversation, actually we had a lot of conversations during the budget time, came up with a great idea of showing how certain aspects of our school budget continue to compound, increases compound each other, and therefore the school funding that we get from the legislature is just not enough. And so he had a great idea, and several of us went with him. I could go to all of these meetings, but they went to meet with our elected officials in both Lexington and Richland County. And that really did make a difference. Also, the superintendent pulled together schools from, like ours, from across the state. I think there are about 11 or 15 schools, and met with CFOs to come up with a comprehensive plan and comprehensive recommendations to present to our legislators to talk about why we need to make sure that these larger school districts have their fair share of the state money.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Dr. Wallman.
If I were on the board, I would continue to work the way the board has been, just talking with the legislature, talking with local elected officials to try to communicate the difficulty that we have as a district to be able to maintain and grow our programs for our students and to be able to handle the growth issues that we have. But I would also try to get our community stakeholders more involved in that process as well. Legislators are going to respond to their constituents, and so the more input they can get from the constituents that they serve, the more effective that is going to be.
Thank you, Dr. Wallman. Mr. Gates.
We continue to talk about complex issues, right? And the funding issue, we have to engage our state level partners to help us with this. We can't continue to look to local business to be the only source of our increase. I would not categorically say I would be against a millage increase, for example. That might be needed, but I would struggle to support a millage increase that would bring in more than we needed to balance our budget. So I keep coming back to being good stewards of our resources, looking for help at the state level to continue to engage in those conversations. When we need to raise our millage, we would raise our millage at the appropriate level. But we want to be able to demonstrate back to our community and our business holders, our stakeholders, what they're getting. And we know that quality schools lead to quality communities where people want to live, work, and play. So that's extremely important that we keep the high standard here in District 5 that we maintain.
Thank you, Mr. Gates and Mr. Gates.
Thank you, Mary. I want to address something Mr. Gates just said, and I think that if you look back at the history of the school district, there's not been an excessive raising the millage that we have above and beyond what we needed to operate the budget. So I want to make that perfectly clear. Act 388 came about, I mentioned that in the opening statement. It took away one of the tools that are part of the three-legged stool for taxes. It took away the property tax on owner-occupied home for operating schools. And when that happened, the sales tax was supposed to take care of all that. Then a recession came along, and it didn't take care of it. So we found ourselves, and the state legislature found themselves, in a situation of not being able to fund our schools at the proper level. The work that was done last year, that Ms. Hutchinson mentioned with Mr. White and others, was very, very good. We have to continue to talk to our legislators. They control our destiny with the budget. And everything that happens down there affects every one of the school districts in a little different way. We wanted 7 or 8 or 10 fast-growing school districts that were being really hurt by our growth and by our needs. So we address that, and I think that's a big part of why we're here today.
Thank you, Mr. Camp. Our next question tonight is, do you support the superintendent's proposed Vision 2020? And what are your top 2 or 3 priorities within that plan? We'll start with Dr. Walton.
I do support his proposed vision. I think it covers all the different aspects of the district that we need to be looking at, and it's very well thought out. My top two priorities or three priorities would be going ahead with adding the wing here on Chapin Middle School, updating and upgrading the legacy schools in the district as needed, including infrastructure and accommodating needs of students. Several years ago, before the iPads were issued in the high schools, I was getting feedback from teachers and students that there wasn't enough capacity for all the technology that was trying to be used in the building. So it was something that when I brought it to the administration and to the board level, that they were able to then increase that aspect of, fix that aspect of the school. And my third priority would then be the elementary school in the Chapin area.
Thank you, Dr. Waldman. Mr. Hicks.
We're fortunate to have Dr. Hefner in the district. He's truly a visionary, and I just can't, I'm always amazed at his, at how forward he looks. His vision for 2020, I support. I do think that's a great vision. Now we have to figure out how to put the legs to it, how we come up with the resources. The three things that come to mind for me would be the wing here, if we're already over capacity, the support of magnet programs in our district. We've seen how those magnet programs, especially at the elementary level, have drawn students to those schools, so we want to make sure we can continue to provide the choice that our students enjoy now. And then to look at our legacy schools and how we best continue to improve and make those facilities attractive to the students that will benefit from them.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Camp.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, I do support the superintendent's proposed vision 2020. The first thing that we're talking about several times, it's already happened. The board approved it. The board member here, it's happened. That was the easy one out of the chute. The rest of it gets a little harder. One of the things that happened in 2008, we had a group that fought that bond revenue. We had 3,000 students in Portland last year. We had people fighting us about passing bond revenue. Most of you probably voted for that bond. Thank you for doing that. The big complaint was you're not going to address the needs in over schools. We know you're not going to do it. The first thing we did was address the needs in over schools. Seven Oaks Elementary, Irmo Elementary, Lee Park Elementary, all of those were addressed, and others, even Chapin Elementary. That's the same thing this time. We've already addressed this. We know there's going to be a need for a new elementary school in the Chapin area, but we will not forget the great schools all over this district that have existed for a while. There are a lot of needs like doors and walls are real basic things that need to happen. And I can assure you this board will address that if we are given the opportunity to the funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Camp. Ms. Hutchinson.
Certainly. One of the, we talked about the growth, but we also haven't had a chance to talk about the magnet school programs that Dr. Hefner has brought to our school district, which are just amazing. And they have been so successful. I believe our parents and our students have responded well to that. So I definitely will support that, expanding and then supporting the current programs we have. The other is to support his plan to hire a professional who can plan for growth both short-term and long-term. We haven't had that position since probably 1996 when I got on board the first time around. And that's really a critical position, and it's someone who is looking at the school district and at the community from a very high level, looking at what the needs are. And I think for us to have that, then it will help us. As far as the building programs, is limited dollars. Construction is expensive. One of the things that was mentioned earlier was the reason for Chapin Middle School not being built on big enough. We absolutely used every dollar we possibly could, and we now are able to expand it and make it the right size.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. As a board member, would you vote for annual cost of living increases for district employees? Why or why not? And Mr. Hicks, you'll go first.
Yes, I would. We've talked a lot about new facilities, but we can't forget the most valuable resource we have are the people that are in those facilities. Those educators that come in every day, pour their heart, their life, and their training into our students. we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to retain those folks and to make sure that we reward them, of course, with the cost of living, but that we also demonstrate each and every day just how valuable they are and how important they are to us as a district. I've seen in my own family what a difference it makes when a teacher will take that extra time with a student, time on his or her own, and we want to continue to reward and encourage our faculty, our staff, and our administrators.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Mr. Kim.
And I would answer that I would also vote for that. Unfortunately, as most of you know, especially you folks that teach and our administrators in schools, we haven't had the funds to do that. We did that this year. You just now see that in your salary checks, but there have not been funds. It's been a shortfall every year. I think this cost of living increase that we were able to fund this year, the first time in probably 5 or 6 years. And unfortunately, I personally would love to see that happen every year. Your costs are going up just like everybody else's costs are going up. The reason we were able to do that this year, I think, twofold. This state has had a much better year with the economy and more tax revenue came in. But last year, this board took a very bold step, and under Act 388, we were allowed to go back and do a look-back provision to capture millage that we have not used in the past because we didn't need it for the operation at that time. At that time, we kept getting further and further behind. We needed it at that time. This year, with a better increase from the state, and then those funds that became available, we were able to give, for the first time in many years, a cost of living step increase. Most fees are not on, no fees that were significant are even charged in our schools anymore. So it's a year-to-year cycle. That's the hard part of knowing what you pay.
Thank you, Mr. Gann. Ms. Hutchinson.
Certainly. I would most definitely love to be able to give cost of living raises every year, but after approving 14 budgets during my career as a school board member, I know that's not practical, and I am very practical when it comes to finances. We have to consider what we're offering to our teachers and employees that may not always be monetary, but making sure that they're in a great environment where they work. The millage increases, and we're very careful about the way we make that decision. We definitely do not set the millage higher than what we need, and we want to make sure that, because remember I mentioned earlier that our employees live in this district, so they understand what's going on and how that we have limited dollars. So Mr. Gant was 100% right in what his description of how we're able to give the raise this year and a loyalty bonus between November and December, which we're very proud to be able to give.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. And Dr. Baldwin.
Well, yes, I think that all employees deserve an annual cost of living increase. Your expenses are always going up, cost of living is going up. You should not lose buying power by not getting cost of living increases. And I believe that for our district employees, I believe that for all employees, really. The problem there is the limited funding that we have. And because of that 388, the limitations on how much millage we could increase are going to make that not always possible to be able to actually give the annual cost of living increase. But I would love to see us be able to do that every year.
Thank you, Dr. Baldwin. We are at question 9 tonight, which will bring us around back to the top of the tables here, and we're asking that you would describe a situation in which you have had to deal with conflict, how you would deal with conflict concerning board matters, staff issues, and community taxpayer concerns. Mr. Gibb, you go first.
Right, can I have more than 1 minute? Can I have like 5 minutes? No, I'll give you several. The 2008 bond referendum, I mentioned a little while ago, we had people that didn't favor that, so we fought that, we had a 56% majority that voted for that, but even after it was passed, we had people that still tried to block that, still trying to block part of that today. That, in 2010, but I will say to you, the way I handled that was we had to move forward, we had to take the steps. We, in this district, School District 5 has currently been sued by a former board member. I think it's up to the count of 12. I have been sued personally by that board member, that former board member, and that's been resolved and it's being appealed. So There are things you have to deal with by going through the process. The thing I think you have to say to the community is the majority of people who voted for this, we need to stay on course and do it. Unfortunately, it wastes an extreme amount of money to have to go through that. As far as staff members, I want to shift from that. I can talk about that all night. Staff members, our superintendent supervises all staff members. We as a board are there to hear the disagreement, so we can't get involved in that day-to-day piece. Anybody wants to talk about that more for another 10 minutes or so after talking about things?
Thank you, Mr. Gann. Ms. Hutchinson.
Certainly, it would be too easy to carry forward what Mr. Gaines was talking about. One thing that we haven't done in a really long time, and it's one of these words that school board members and superintendents hate to hear, is rezoning. But back probably in 1999, when I was on the school board, we had a 1996 bond referendum. It was much smaller, but we added some new schools, and so therefore that meant rezoning. It was out in the Chapin area. And people are very devoted to their neighborhood school, especially their elementary schools. So it was a very challenging time. People were upset if they had to be moved. And one thing that I learned from that is that people need to have the information. They need to have the ability to share their opinion. They need to make sure that feel like they're being heard. That's really important. And we did get a lot of good information, suggestions from our community, but that was really a challenge, and that was a tough time to handle.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Dr. Walton.
I'd like to address this question in more of a theoretical sense. I mean, basically, communication is the major component of resolving a dispute. We need to be open to communicating with our other board members, staff issues, with teachers, with the community or taxpayers. If we have open sessions, workshops, or forums like this where we can actually communicate with the public and let them know, the details of the issue, why one person has one opinion or stance and one person has another, I think that communication will help us to resolve those as best we can. And basically, we have to agree to disagree if that is the case.
Thank you, Dr. Walton. Mr. Gates.
Certainly, I think part of the question was what is your experience having been a chaplain in the United States Army, chaplain for law enforcement, real estate broker that negotiates some pretty high-level contracts. I'm accustomed to dealing with conflict. I think, and Dr. Walton was even alluding to, often conflict arises when one party doesn't feel like they're being heard, or they don't have all the information. So I think it's important to make sure people have a voice, they're able to be heard. Stephen Covey, that fifth habit is to seek to understand before you're understood. And that's always been my experience, not always, most of the time. It's been my experience. We try to understand where someone's coming from, give them a chance to be heard. At the end of the day, that can resolve a lot of conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Our next question tonight is, do you support funding for school resource officers in every District 5 school? And what should be done to ensure SROs do not take on the role of the school administrator for minor student discipline problems? Ms. Hutchinson.
I most definitely support school resource officers in every school. I remember back, I think it was 1998 or 99, when the concept of school resource officers finally hit South Carolina in our school district. And it was just an unknown idea at that point. People were really scared and worried about the idea of having officers in the school would tell what the message was. And as it turned out, it really did become, everyone can imagine what it's like. I remember being a school board member. There were several board members who were opposed to it, but I saw the value in it and realized that was one of the key things that we need to make sure we do is keep all of our students safe. And so by having these school resource officers, we certainly are able to do that, and I will continue to support it 100%.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Dr. Walton.
Yes, I support having the resource officers in all of our District 5 schools. We need to communicate the policies that we want them to follow, and we need to make sure that if there's training needed, that they're providing the training so that they do function as a school resource officer and not as an administrator. but we need to make sure we have appropriate policies in place and that is communicated to our SROs. But I do think that SROs are very valuable individuals in our schools, and they are very good role models in our schools as well.
Thank you, Dr. Walden. Mr. Cates.
I certainly support our SROs and appreciate them being here tonight. I think you've had a long day, and again, thank you for what you do and for your service to our community. I've had the privilege of working alongside officers for a long time. One of the things that pains me the most right now is the erosion of trust between our law enforcement and our citizenry. And one of the things the SROs help us do is to build that trust. When students see them, they see them in the hallway, they interact with them in the cafeteria, they see them in ball games. That helps to build that trust. We need to make sure we're not putting them in a position of disadvantage because we're asking them to do something beyond their training and the requirements of the guidelines that they work under. So I think they're very well trained, and we need to make sure we're very well trained in our schools when to appropriately call on them and what roles they can provide. But yes, certainly support our SROs in each school.
Thank you, Mr. Cates and Mr. Camp.
And I also support our SROs, and I'm so proud they're here tonight, here at most all of our meetings. Unfortunately, that's the part of the world we live in. Things have changed a lot. I will say this, that's something we passed and added to our budget a few years ago. I've not had one person call me or stop in the grocery store and say, y'all need to stop funding SROs in our schools. We don't need that. It's universally needed. We know the tragedy that just happened in Anderson County on a day that nobody would have thought, nobody would have dreamed that, but it happens in elementary, middle, and high school. It happens too often. So my hat's off to them for being here. Not only do we have these situations that occur sometimes, but I know Ms. Miller's here, we have other principals. There are times when parents come to our schools that they get real upset about certain things, and that probably is very good that our SROs are in our schools. I was honored to serve on a task force that Molly Spearman commissioned right after the incident happened in School District 2. She brought together all the leadership she could find. I was the school board president in South Carolina School Board Association at the time, but the one thing that came out of that was that we needed to find, one of the things was we needed to find a role. We don't need to blur those lines, but normal discipline needs to be handled by the school administrators and other situations that require policing and handled there.
Thank you, Mr. Camp. The District 5 is providing many excellent programs for students at all levels and receiving top scores in every arena as it continues to be one of the best in the state and also receive national recognition. So how do you gain the support of those in our community who are opposed to necessary taxes and bond funds that will allow District 5 to continue our tradition of educational excellence? Dr. Walden.
Again, in order to gain the support of people who don't want to support us, we need to communicate with them. We need to explain to them what these bond referendums or taxes will do for them. Even though they maybe don't have any children in schools, they maybe are on a limited income, but if they're homeowners, if they're business owners, there's a large value in having and maintaining an excellent school system like we have. So I would say we need to communicate, but in that process we need to listen. We need to take, understand their point of view and try to see if we can convince them what's the better alternative.
Thank you, Dr. Walden. Mr. Cates.
I'm just going to ask you to read it again, but that'll take more than a minute. We do have some folks we have to recognize aren't going to support us, right? So let's not spend an inordinate amount of time there. Let's engage those people that really want more information. They want the district to be transparent. I'm not suggesting it hasn't. They want transparency is important. They want to know that what they are hearing is accurate. They want to be heard. They want to have a voice. And I think at the end of the day, when we demonstrate value to the community, then they'll come along and will support us. So I think it's important that you will go back to that communication piece and how effective we are in distributing our message.
Thank you, Mr. Cates. Mr. Camp.
We're a public school system. I think we need to educate the public when there's a need. Maybe the people we need to educate aren't as connected to schools as they once were. So that's all part of it. Just say we had a bond run. We always have informational needs. We try to put out all the information, all the needs, and the why we're seeking certain funds. We have a great public information office and part of our Mounds crew here tonight. They're just doing a good job. So I think we have to convey that. We have to educate. I agree with Mr. Cates. We're not going to ever be able to get 100%. I don't think. Although keep in mind, nobody's called me about SROs, so maybe that's 100%. I think you have to move forward with people. You need to find the common denominator if you can. And I found, you talk about children, you talk about schools, you talk about people's grandchildren, you have a common denominator that they can relate to. I recently had a long conversation with a gentleman that greeted me in his yard by saying, Mr. Gant, I'm not going to vote for you. We talked about a half an hour. My wife was real upset and I stayed that long. But at the end of the conversation, he told me, you know what, Mr. Gant, I'm going to reconsider, because we talked about all things school, we talked about his children, his grandchildren. We had common ground. That's a hard task to speak to everyone. I think it's something we need to do.
Thank you, Mr. Gant.
Certainly, I think that our school principals do a wonderful job because they invite the community into the schools for programs. Got several invitations to Veterans Day observances, and so they're great ambassadors, number one. Our superintendent does a wonderful job in meeting with several different groups within the community. He has a ministers group, he has a parents advisory board, senior citizens. I know some of our schools have special programs that aren't tied to holidays, but we're specifically to serve senior citizens, and not saying they're the only ones, but I do think that they're further away from what education in our schools are. So Irmo High School, for instance, has an annual breakfast and with some entertainment, and it's just packed. It's wonderful. It's very uplifting. The attendees hear something about some nice things about what's going on at Irmo High School. And in all of these areas, whenever they come to the school, they're treated with respect, and we listen to them, and I think that does make a big difference.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. We are at the final question that was submitted for this evening, and that is District 5 has an increasingly diverse population. Your question is, how would you address this growing diversity to meet the educational needs of all students from all cultures and economic backgrounds? Mr. Cates, we'll start with you.
One of my biggest concerns is the economic disparity. I want to make sure our programs are available and open, and that things like transportation, fees, although did a great job reducing the fees this year. Thank you to our current board. That was a treat when I registered this year. But we want to make sure that things like transportation, participation fees, the barrier that might be created by the use of technology. I'm a technology person, but I recognize there are some folks that don't have that access at home. So I want to make sure we're putting a concentrated effort into not allowing someone's economic situation to keep them from being able to take full advantage of the programs that we offer in District 5.
Thank you, Mr. Cates. Mr. Gant.
Thank you, Mary. I think we do have a lot of diversity in our district. We need to embrace that diversity. We live in a diverse world. That's what we're all about. I think one of the keys for our students that come into our schools, and maybe they're somewhat outside of the norm in that classroom for a while, but we have a class size policy that allows that teacher to get to know that student, and I'll bet you there's a great one-on-one that goes on, and that diversity becomes part of that whole classroom experience. I think we live and thrive as global citizens, and I want all our students to be able to live and thrive. When they leave this wonderful district, they're going to live in some areas that's got a diverse community. It's something we need to embrace. One of my teaching daughters who teaches elementary school told me this. She said, Dad, we need to love the kids, the students, give them hope, and love and support. And that's really what we need to do as a district. They need us, each and every one, in a little different way all the time. So I think we need to embrace that diversity, give them everything we've got, and that's what we do as a district.
Thank you, Mr. Gant.
Certainly. Over the past, I'd say 15 years, the percentage of our students who are on free and reduced lunch have really increased considerably. In 2001, it was 15%. Last year, it was 35%. And that is a big increase. Certainly, it's not as big as many school districts across the state. But what that means, what that tells us is that these are students who need some extra help. Maybe they have a parent at home who's working 2 jobs. They're not getting the proper food that they need. Perhaps they need some extra help with homework. So I think it's really important our social workers play a key role in identifying the needs of these students. I think that the teachers find the social workers indispensable, so continuing the funding for our social workers, making sure that we have teachers who come from diverse backgrounds and who are knowledgeable about the needs of children, whatever the culture may be or whatever the economic background they have.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. And Dr. Walden.
Well, I think we need to make sure that we're teaching cultural awareness whenever possible in our schools, integrating cultural differences into coursework so that you have different examples of a subject that you're teaching, but for different cultural groups. We need to accommodate those students that have financial needs. One example that I can think of right off the top of my head is that, for example, Irma High School provides transportation at no charge for students who stay after school for their tutoring program. This way, those students are not restricted because their parents can't come and pick them up at 5 o'clock or they have no way to get home. They will be brought home with this transportation that's provided. And we as adults in our district need to be good role models for our students.
Thank you, Dr. Walden. We have now reached our closing remarks, and so we will have 2 minutes. You get more time now. We're back to the 2-minute mark to each of our candidates, and these again were selected at random order. So, Ms. Hutchison, you're first.
Certainly. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our ideas and thoughts, and I hope that you will take this information and share it with your neighbors and your friends, because I know you have people asking you because you're involved with the schools. Who are the best school board members to vote for? I will tell you a little bit more about myself. I do work at the University of South Carolina, and I've been in higher education for most of my career, so I do understand what the needs are of students who are college-bound, but I also do recognize that many of our students go straight into work, and our Career and Technology Center has really filled a major role in that area, and I will continue to support that. Also, we have students who go into the military, for which we are very proud of that. Mr. Salazar, I know that you, as being a military person, welcome those students. So we've got so many good things going on with our school district. As a board member, I consider myself as being very practical. I'm very practical when it comes to the budget, when making decisions about whether we're talking about zoning or new schools or what we can build or what we can't build. So I really think that is a really good skill that is needed on the school board. Also about leadership skills, I've served as the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. I've been effective in being able to help our board, and as we continue to make these difficult decisions, hopefully I'm able to really articulate what the key issues or the problems are so that we can all move forward and vote for the best solution for our students and for our schools and for our community. And I see that my time is up. But thank you so much for being here, and I hope I do have your support.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchison. Dr. Walden.
As I mentioned in my opening statement, I've had extensive volunteer involvement over the last 16 years at District 5. I've been attending board meetings for too long to remember, and so I feel like I am very ready to hit the ground running should I be elected as a board member. I'm a very good listener. I'm very attentive. I'll listen carefully, pay attention to the details, evaluate the issue at hand, and any information that's presented or otherwise available before making a decision. I'll listen, think, understand, and then act. My experience, I have experience staying within a budget. As a researcher at the University of South Carolina, my job basically is to gain grant money and then be able to do my research using those grant dollars. So I'm very experienced and familiar with the concept of staying within budgets and learning how to be as economical as possible with the funds that are at hand. My daughter graduated high school from District 5 in 2014, so now I feel like I have the time that's necessary to devote to being a school board member to that service. My undergraduate institution's motto was "Ut Prossum," which means that I may serve. I'm hoping that I will be able to serve District 5 as a school board member to help provide the best educational opportunities for all of the students within our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bowman. Mr. Gann.
Thank you, Mary. I want to thank everybody again for being here tonight. I often say, I wish we had to hold this in the stadium. We had standing room only, and people were scouting tickets to get in, but we don't. Please carry the message back. It's been an honor for me to serve the 16 years I've served, and it's been an honor for me to run again with folks that are on the stage here. You're seeing a very positive campaign, a very, very good thing going on, which I think is great. I serve with a great board today. That will change slightly come November the 8th, and that's just part of the cycle. There's much ahead for School District 5, and I see it as not a problem, but an opportunity. The growth that we're beginning to experience is a good thing, and it's a very controlled growth at this time. 300 students is not unsurmountable. There are districts around, the next one, and Richmond teachers grow by 800 to 1,000 students a school a year is what they grow. We're not doing that. Our previous bond referendum, we've addressed that a little bit tonight, really addressed being behind, having kids in portable classrooms. We called out a little bit, we got a little space, and now we're seeing that's gone. Our 2020 hindsight is a little better, and our pencil is a little sharper. We had built a wing on the school when we started, but we weren't 100% sure. You know how you go to anything to buy, you're not 100% sure you got the money. I think the taxpaying citizens expected us to do the best job we could, not overrun it. I'm very proud that this district, we stayed within our budget on almost every project except Irma Elementary. The reason we did this is because we chose to build a new school, renovate the old school with right with it. So a lot of pride for this whole district and all of that. Again, I think we're in the business of educating local citizens to go out to whatever their next step is, and it happens starting in kindergarten and goes all the way through. This is a very education-minded community, and I love being a part of School District 5. It's very infectious. I hope some of you someday will decide you're going to take another step and run for a school board seat, because I think the people I see here will do a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gann. And finally, Mr. King.
Thank you for your time, for being here, for hosting us. As a minister, I understand the importance of calling, and I'm amazed every day with our administrators, our faculty, our staff that understand what you do is your calling. And it's not just your job, and I appreciate the way you pour into our students and the passion you have for the responsibility you have. I appreciate the parents that are here. If we could get every parent engaged in their child's education, a lot of the problems we talked about tonight would probably go away. So thank you for being engaged in education and being willing to give up some time to be here. As someone who has been a part of small business all my adult life, I understand the challenge. As a real estate broker, I understand the changing communities and what it means to have quality schools and just how important that is to the stability and to the growth of our communities. I've been involved with designing complex facilities, working with state and federal contracts. So I think I have a good handle on some of the complexity that comes your way when you're a member of the board. But I would be honored to serve. I feel like service is, I was fortunate to be taught that service was an expectation and not a choice, but an expectation that you would serve in some capacity. So I'm honored to mirror for my children what it means to serve their community. And I'd appreciate your vote and have some information on the table in the back. I'd be delighted that you would take that with you.
Thank you, Mr. King. I want to thank all of you for being with us tonight. I want to personally thank all of the candidates. I know that running a campaign, but serving on a board and all of the other things you're already doing is a lot of time, a lot of investment, a lot of sleepless nights probably that many of us don't know about. So thank you for being willing to serve, because just the willingness and the heart that goes into it is huge. It's what our community needs. So we appreciate you and your efforts in that campaign. Most definitely. And I want to especially, I mean, obviously as a member of the media gets around election time, which is so fun to read those comments. No, I'm just kidding. But my heart, I wish I could see this entire room packed with people, because you see those comments, and you see those concerns, and we have this amazing opportunity to hear you guys speak. And so as so many of you shared so eloquently, taking that message on, sharing it, I just want to thank you for taking the time to be here tonight. Lives are busy, schedules are crazy, and so I'm sure that's why we don't have a packed room. But you've made the choice to be here. So thank you for doing that. Thank you to everyone who will watch this later and take the time to really invest in our future. It's not just our communities, it's our next generation. Something that we're all so proud of, but also so concerned of, and concerned for rather, making sure that we are doing everything we can to give everyone that best opportunity. So thank you all for letting me have a small part in this tonight. And November 8th is the big day.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Ward, and I'm the Harbison West School Improvement Council Chair. And so I've been, really just thrilled to see the School Improvement Council's partner up with the Teacher Forum and really try to just get really good information out there for our candidates, to our parents, to our teachers. And so just as a small thanks, we wanted to give you the WOW award. And I asked Mark, I said, Mark, you always figure out a way to get the D5 apple and the WOW. And I said, how does this rank according to, the golden ruler that we also get to see out there? Apparently this goes to staff and teachers and districts. So it's kind of a big deal. So anyway, thank you so much. Board candidates, and also I just want to say thank you to the teachers that are here tonight as volunteers, as well as our parent volunteers. Reggie Salazar was just phenomenal. Word went out. We need some folks from Chapin, and we had a list in their time class, so we really appreciate that. And I just wanted to leave you with one little piece. Obviously, this is one way that parents and community members can be involved. It takes a lot of time, talent, and treasure to run for a candidate position. But the reason that we are all here is for the children. And being kind of a data person at the state level with education, I just found this kind of amazing. Since we're in a middle school setting, it's just crazy, but parental involvement in school life for middle schoolers was more strongly associated with high academic assistance and helping them with their homework. So it's not just about the homework, it's about being in the schools, it's about asking those questions and really being a partner in their child's education. And really encouraging us to do that throughout their educational career. We start off high with about 56% parent involvement in K2, and it's down to 28% by the time they hit high school. So it's a marathon and not a sprint. So I just appreciate your time, get the word out there, and let's start filling those seats. Thank you. Drive safe.